Okay.
Always like to know.
Where were you born?
Bronx, New York.
And what kind of home life did you have? Mother, father, brother, sisters?
Well, my father was a pharmacist. My mother was, she did accounting work for my uncle's wholesale drug business. I had one sister who is 5 years younger than me. She's now, I guess, an assistant principal at a school. And she's been in education her whole life and runs marathons.
Oh, wow. And what kind of neighborhood were you from?
Oh, middle class. Middle class Italian neighborhood.
And what kind of kid were you?
I don't know. I mean, we went to junior high school, and college all on the subway.
And who sparked your interest in boxing?
My father. He had two passions in life, the theater and boxing.
Oh, yeah?
He used to take me to the fights when I was a kid. I'm going back to when I was 4 or 5 years old. A place called Long Beach Stadium, and that's where I got interested. Long Beach Stadium was an outdoor arena in Long Beach, Long Island. And, they used to have fights there every Friday night if it wasn't raining during the summer because, you don't run outdoors in New York in the winter. And, everybody in the 40s and the 50s fought at Long Beach. I mean, all the famous fighters. Sandy Sadler fought there. Roland Lastaza fought there. Tony Gennaro fought there. I mean, anyone that was famous in the 40s and the 50s fought at Long Beach.
Those were the days, huh?
Yep.
And was boxing your favorite sport as a boy?
Yeah, I would say so. Boxing or football. I was a baseball fan, too, that's for sure. And basketball.
Did you play any sports?
Played football in high school.
Yeah, were you good?
I played. No. But I played.
Yeah. Who were your favorite? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Who were my favorite? You were asking me who were my favorite what?
Who were your favorite fighters as a kid?
As a kid?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I guess Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah. And we all know you're a pharmacist in real life. Where'd you go to school for pharmacy?
Columbia.
And
my family went to Columbia. My father, my grandfather, all my uncles.
Oh, yeah. They all pharmacists too?
Yep. Well, one of my uncles became a dentist, and then he passed away. But a lot of them were pharmacists.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated from Columbia in 1961.
Oh, okay. And when did you decide to get involved in boxing?
I guess it was when I got out of the Army. My father-in-law was an inspector with the New York State Athletic Commission, and I used to go to fights every week, and so I would sit there keeping score and whatnot. And he took me to the Athletic Commission, and he, they asked me, I said I wanted to be a judge. They said, well, you got to get some experience. So I said, what do I have to do? They said, judge amateur boxing. So I did that for 2 years, and then I went back to the State Athletic Commission in 1967 and got my first professional license.
Yeah. And why did you choose judging and not reffing? Why would you not want to be a referee?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. They just don't like to sit there and keep score. Fascinated me. I started, the referees would score as well.
You what? What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said, when I started, boxing was scored by 2 judges and a referee. The referee would score fights as well.
Yeah, I think that's better too. They still do that in England, right? Don't they?
Well, yeah, in England, basically, the referees just hold all of them.
Yeah.
This is a real title fight, and they do it a little bit differently. They bring in judges in the title fight. For their regular fights, I think only the referee keeps score, which I never did like. I used to fight with the British Boxing Board of Control over that all the time.
Oh, you don't like that?
Nah, only the referee. Nah, he has enough to do, making sure that, watching out for the safety of the fighters. He can't be scoring a fight,
That's true.
Can't be concentrating on who's winning and who's losing. Somebody will get killed.
Yeah.
It's a very bad practice to have their referee as the sole judge.
I agree with you. I do. Right, do you still practice pharmacist?
Up until September 2011, I did. I worked for a chain in New York City called Duane Reade, D-U-A-N-E-R-E-A-D-E. It was named after their original store, which was on the corner of Duane Street and Reed Street in downtown Manhattan. And in September 2011, I got very sick. They discovered prostate cancer and a heart disease called cardiomyopathy and diabetes and I don't know, cholesterol problems, all sorts of problems. That I had to take radiation for the prostate cancer. And taking radiation 5 days a week really doesn't leave you much time. You go into a drugstore and work 13 hours. So, you know, I stopped working in pharmacy in September 2011, and I haven't gone back to Duane Reade yet. I'm considering it, but so far I haven't. I'm starting to think I've reached the age where it's about time I got out of something.
And how's your health now?
Well, it's so-so. I mean, I still see the urologist for the prostate cancer, and I still see a cardiologist. And, you know, so I'm hoping for the best.
I had no idea. I thought you just look like a vision of perfection.
Well, you know, I don't hide it from anybody, but on the other hand, you know, these things happen.
Yeah.
You hit a certain age, you got to expect it.
I'm actually 35, and last year I found out I had diabetes myself. I didn't even know. It's rough.
Yeah, no, that one is I did pretty good with that. They took me off the diabetes medicine, thank heaven, so I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
Lucked out with that.
It stinks to have to give up your favorite food.
Yeah, I know. Bothers me at times, too.
Yeah. And you being a world traveler and someone in the medical field who isn't afraid to speak his mind, what do you think of the medical system in this country as opposed to others that you've been to?
It's very interesting. I have a friend who has problems, you know, comes from the United Kingdom, and he has a problem with his shoulder and also his elbows, you know, from playing rugby. And he swears up and down that the doctors in the United States are much better than the doctors in the United Kingdom. Even though in the United Kingdom you just walk in and give your name and that's it, you know, and they don't judge anything. So, I mean, whether our system is better than socialized medicine, I think that there's something to be said on you know, for both points. But I've never really made a study of the medical systems when I go overseas. If I have to go to Mexico or Canada or Great Britain or wherever, I just basically go there to score a fight or work for HBO or whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to find out about their medical system.
No.
I guess that's true. Did you ever tell another judge what you thought of their bad decision?
No, not really. I mean, you know, since I've been keeping score for HBO, of course they hear what I have to say, but no, not really, because, you know, look, everybody has a bad night every now and then. You know, you see guys that, you know, sometimes they give you a score that doesn't particularly agree with mine, but then the next time they're around the same as I am. So, you know, it's just, you know, you don't see too many that really are bad on a consistent basis. So, you know, no, I mean, you know, you may criticize the decision that night, but as far as what happens in the future, a lot of them just bounce right back and are as good as anybody.
Yeah. Do you watch other fights on Showtime or competing networks?
Anything I can find on the TV, I watch.
What did you think of the judges having Lopez ahead of Salido in that second fight at the time of the stoppage?
See, that's a typical example. You know, I really, from watching it off the TV, and a lot of times you can't get an accurate, you know, opinion of what's happening on TV. I really thought Salido won just about every round except the fifth, you know, where he got knocked down. But on the other hand, I know Michael Pernick very well, and he was one of the judges. He had Lopez ahead. You know, I'm not going to tell him that I thought his decision was bad because, you know, I know darn well 99% of the time he's an excellent judge. As a matter of fact, he's coming Sunday to my induction into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. He's coming up from Florida, where he lives. Michael's about as good a judge as you'll find anywhere in the world. So, you know, yeah, you know, I'm not going to criticize him personally. You know, off the TV, I thought that Salido was winning rather handily, but sometimes you get fooled by the TV because, number one, you can't, you know, you lose the velocity of the punch, And number two, you get a one-dimensional view, and when you're there, you get a three-dimensional view. You can see what's going on, around the guy, on the sides of the guy, etc. And even though high-definition television has made it a little bit better to watch it at home, nothing is as good as being there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as scoring the fight.
Yeah. And what did you think of Lopez's corner not stopping the fight earlier? Did you think they should have, or did it not bother you?
No, because I know that he probably would have been yelling and screaming worse than he did. I mean, bad enough that he screamed at Roberto Ramirez for stopping the fight, but no, I thought that, it was in Puerto Rico. You had to give him every chance to win, and he was the hometown hero and whatnot, so I think they did. But listen, I'd never criticize a referee for stopping a fight too soon. I mean, you got to go for safety first, so if a referee feels the guy's getting hurt, I have nothing against him stopping it too soon. I am very much against some of the guys that don't stop a fight in time, but I didn't think Juan Manuel Lopez was going to get sent to the hospital for a non-stoppage in that fight. Just a tough fight.
Yeah, it was. For the last 3 rounds, I started getting a little worried for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the first fight they had too, I felt the same way. The last 3 or 4 rounds were unnecessary.
Oh yeah, I could certainly understand your concern. These guys are really battling.
Yeah.
Lito's a tough guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he wants to lose to a Puerto Rican either. I think it's some territorial.
Yeah, that's for sure.
When you think about a bad decision, what fights do spring to mind?
Bad decision?
Yeah.
The worst I ever saw was a fight a number of years ago in the Spectrum in Philadelphia, for the junior lightweight championship of the world, between a kid from Philadelphia, Tyrone Everett, a southpaw promoted by J. Russell Peltz, the popular promoter from Philadelphia now, and the opponent was Alfredo Escalera, who was the champion from Puerto Rico, and giving every break possible to Escalera, I still scored a 10 rounds to 5 to Everett, and Everett lost a split decision. And that by far was the worst decision I ever saw.
Yeah.
It was so bad that they didn't announce the scores till the next day because they were afraid there'd be a riot in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. That's bad.
It was bad.
Yeah. Did you ever think about putting the pencil and the scorecard down and just leaving the sport altogether now?
Well, I stopped judging officially in 2001. There were a lot of controversies. HBO asked me to stop because, I'd keep scoring a fight, and then the next thing you know, the guy would be on HBO, and, they'd start saying, well, Harold Lederman judges fights, and that's why he's on HBO. Well, something like that. So HBO said, Harold, would you just work for us and not, judge officially? So I stopped judging officially in 2001. My daughter judges right now, and I'm happy the way it is. I miss it, but,
Yeah. Was your daughter always involved and interested in boxing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when Julie was a kid, I used to take her all over the world. I mean, in other words, I would take her to fights in Venezuela, Chile, Argentina, Paris, Colombia, Panama. Wherever I was judging, she was there. So, she was a good student. I didn't feel bad about pulling her out of school for a couple of days, and she would go with me all over the world, and she loved boxing since, she was a little kid, and a lot of the boxing people knew, from all over the world, knew Julie when she was a kid, and, they're all happy to see her now.
Yeah. Lucky girl.
Yeah, I was very proud of the way she progressed, and, she did good.
She's definitely one of the best in the world now. So.
Oh, thank you.
Great family of judges.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right. And what can be done for more honest judging today in the sport?
Well, I'll tell you, I've said this on HBO a lot. The biggest problem, man, and this is honest to God's truth, is the appointment of the officials. In other words, the state athletic commissions, the final authority for appointing a judge is not the sanctioning body, it's the state athletic commission. They have to make sure that they get the best judges possible in high-profile fights. So in other words, when you got a new judge or a judge nobody knows, don't put him into a fight that's a main event on HBO or it's a pay-per-view fight. I mean, don't put an unknown judge into Floyd Mayweather, Miguel Cotto, for example. Use the best you have, and the rest you bring them up in the 4-round fights, and the 6-round fights, and the 8-round fights. The problem is that the commissioners were just so, they were pushed around by the sanctioning bodies. They would make that same mistake constantly. They would just put in guys that nobody knew and into very, very high-profile fights that the whole world was watching. And the next thing you know, there was a huge controversy. Typical example was that fight in Atlantic City with Eris, Landy, Lara, and Paul Williams, where, he used 3 unknown judges in an HBO fight. The next thing you know, Lara lost the decision. They should have won, and the whole world exploded. The commissioner took the brunt of it and wound up suspending the 3 judges. And truth of the matter is, it wasn't their fault. They just weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for the pressure and all that sort of stuff. Had he appointed his 3 best judges, he probably wouldn't have had the controversy. And that's what I think is the answer. I mean, they have enough seminars and whatnot that the judges are forced to attend. What they need is they got to just appoint better judges in high-profile fights, and the other judges bring them along until they're ready to work the high-profile fights. But they got to be very careful when they appoint a judge to work a TV fight, and basically that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Did you ever spar yourself? Did you ever do anything in the gym?
No. No, I don't take a good punch.
You never know.
I'm not willing to find out.
That's why you're the smart one, I guess.
I guess. That's why my nose ain't broken.
What'd you say?
That's why my nose is not broken.
That's right. You still got a perfect nose.
There you go.
What's your favorite places that you've been to see a fight?
I love El Paso, Texas. It's right on the border, and the fans are so enthusiastic. I mean, one time we did Daniel Zaragoza against Eric Morales, and it was Morales' first title. I think it was 118 pounds. It was about 150 degrees in the place. They had absolutely no air conditioning. The heat was stifling, and yet the place was packed because all those people come over the border from Mexico, and they love it, Just the enthusiasm in El Paso is like no other place in the world. I love going there. San Antonio is another great place, even though you get strange decisions at times with the Texas Commission. It's still the enthusiasm of the fans makes up for it, and it's a great place to watch a fight. I like Cincinnati, where Adrian Broner comes from. Great tradition of boxing. Guys like Ezra Charles came from there, and you could go on and on and on. Aaron Pryor, Tony Tubbs. I mean, it just has so many great fighters came from Cincinnati. Now Adrian Broner's picking up the torch for all those guys that came from Cincinnati previously. When I was with HBO, since I've been with HBO, the only other Cincinnati fighter we really had on was a bantamweight champion at one time called Timmy Austin, who was promoted by Don King. But even still, Broner is just, a throwback to these old guys, and, just a great tradition to go there. So I like going to Cincinnati.
Yeah. You brought up Eric Morales and Daniel Zaragoza. What do you think about Eric Morales over the weekend?
Well, he got $1 million. Good for him. It was obvious at the weigh-in that it wasn't the same Eric Morales, even though in the early rounds he fought surprisingly well against a young, strong guy. So, I just think that now it's time to call it a day. I mean, I hope he doesn't go back for any more. I mean, he got his huge payday. Now it's time to get out. There's nothing left. I mean, people talk about him and Marco Antonio Barrera for the 4th time, but I don't know. I think, Barrera's seen better days, and so's Morales. So, I hope he's got enough money to retire. Basically, that's the way I look at it. He gave it his all. He fought a tough fight, and now it's time to get out.
I don't want to say a 4th fight, actually, no. I don't think that'd be good for their brain.
No, not at all. That's why I'd like to see him quit.
Yeah. And what's your favorite places to... I already asked you that. Sorry. Did you ever feel that you made a bad call?
Nope. If I don't agree with the judges, I think they made a bad call.
Yeah, that's a good way to think. And places that give the most exciting shows.
The most exciting?
Yeah, the most exciting type of show, like England, I think.
Not Vegas. Not Vegas, because Vegas, you got that casino atmosphere. It's too antiseptic. Too many people sitting around wearing suits, sitting in $1,000 seats. But certainly New York, Madison Square Garden, people go nuts. They have an expression in New York. They say they come out of the subways, and it's true. New York, you get the poor people, the blacks and the Puerto Ricans, and basically they come by subway. They don't come in no stretch limousine. They come by subway to see the fight, and they buy the cheap tickets, and sometimes they buy the expensive ones, and they are by far the most enthusiastic fans, which is the reason why Miguel Cotto loves to fight in Madison Square Garden. And to tell you the truth, I wish he was fighting Floyd Mayweather May the 5th in Madison Square Garden instead of at the MGM Grand. But there's nothing I can do about it because of the economics of boxing. You know, they make more from the casino dollars out there, and what can you do? But as far as, the enthusiasm in the Garden, it's great. Los Angeles, the Staples Center is very good for boxing. Fans go nuts there, too. You always want to see fans that are up on their feet cheering. And the Staples Center is very, very good in that respect.
Yeah. And your top, I put top 10 fights, but just give me a few fights that you feel privileged to have seen.
Well, by far, the best fight I ever saw was way back, I guess it was in the 70s, between, at that time, the then WBC super bantamweight champion, 122 pounds, a kid from Puerto Rico named Alfredo Gomez, against the then WBC 118-pound champion, a kid from Mexico named Lupe Pintor. And they went at it like cat and dog for 14 rounds, and in the 14th round, Pintor fell down, and off in the canty counted him out. And it was the greatest fight I ever saw. I never saw two guys go at it like that for 14 rounds. And when they walked out of the arena, walked out of the ring, Gomez's face looked like it had been through a meat grinder, and Lupe Pintor looked like she had never been in a fight. And it was just that sort of an incredible battle back and forth, and it's the kind of fight you'll never forget. Interestingly enough, the main event that night was Tommy Hearns against Wilfredo Benitez, which on paper was a fabulous fight. Nobody could watch it, because you couldn't follow an act like Pintor and Gomez. I mean, everybody was draining from screaming at Pintor and Gomez. So it was just an incredible night of boxing. It was at the Superdome in New Orleans. It was a Don King show. That was the best I ever saw. And then from there, you could just, you could think of a lot of fights that are about on the same level. The three Gatti Ward fights, the trilogy, certainly absolutely terrific fights, each and every one of them. And I'd have to say the same about Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe, all three of them. I mean, three magnificent battles. You had no doubt that every one of them was going to be a great fight because, the previous ones were great fights. So those were three great fights that, that come to mind right away. Of course, Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler was a sensational fight. It was, a chess match, a cat and mouse type of thing. When Leonard would get caught up on the ropes, Hagler would hammer him. And on the other hand, when Leonard would keep the fight in the middle of the ring, he just outboxed Marvin. And, it was just a great fight. Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler was a great fight. I mean, they went at it for 3 rounds. It was just, incredible beyond belief until Marvin knocked him out. So, those are some of the great fights that just come to mind.
Yeah, what do you think of 15-round fights compared to 12-round fights? You wish they'd been like 15?
I love the 15-round fights. I never really thought that, you get more injuries in the last 3 rounds, which is what Jose Sulaiman preached when, he changed things from 15 to 12. Everybody else followed along. I don't know. I just really believe that, guys got ready for those championship rounds, those last 3 rounds, and, you saw fighters get in better shape because they knew how to fight a longer distance, and I just thought there were a lot of great fights at 15 rounds. I certainly would love to see 15-round fights come back. But I don't know. The people that wanted the 12-round fights claim that there were too many injuries in the late rounds. I've heard other rumors that said that they went to 12 rounds so they could fit it into a 1-hour TV show, but I never believed that, I certainly was in favor of the 15-round fights. I thought they were exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. How long were you involved in the sport before you realized how corrupt it is?
Why do you say it's corrupt?
It's not. Is it not corrupt?
No, I don't know. Look, it's business, it's politics, but actual corruption, no. I think that, like you, I've read about, Frankie Carbo and what used to go on in the 40s, but, I don't know, in my time, I think it's been pretty honest. I'll be honest with you. There are places where I think they lean towards the hometown guy. Thailand, for example, Korea, notorious for, hometown guys winning decisions in fights that go to distance. Those are mostly flyweight title fights that we here in the United States don't pay much attention to, flyweight, light flyweight, strawweight, that kind of stuff. But, there again, I don't see this corruption. I just see this, a lot of nationalism where they sort of lean toward the hometown guy. And the hometown guy's always got the crowd in it, and, you know, screaming for him, so he seems to get the benefit in close rounds.
Yeah. And I've been watching boxing since I was little on HBO, and I noticed that they always start up the Harold question segment, and they stop it pretty much right away before it even catches fire. Why do they stop it before it catches fire?
I have no idea. There you'd have to call somebody at HBO. It's Rick Bernstein, the executive producer. He puts the shows together.
So it's like a one-time thing, and then they stop it after one time.
There you go. Now what can you do?
No, I guess not a whole lot. What was the favorite fight that you worked?
My favorite fight?
Yeah, the favorite fight that you had a judge, actually.
Gomez-Pintor. I mean, that was my favorite by far. Wilfredo Gomez, Lupe Pintor. I'm telling you, it was absolutely a war. Love that fight.
Do you prefer judging easy to score fights or hard to score fights, or does it not matter to you?
Say it again, I forget.
Would you rather score a hard to score fight or a clear?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no, I mean, sure, you always want to fight that's a challenge, you know, that's for sure. Yeah, you want something that makes you think, you know, something real close, definitely.
Yeah.
No fun in the easy ones.
Yeah. What do you think we can do to get kids involved in the sport again? Do you think we can do anything at all anymore at this stage?
Well, you know, they got to get them started at an early age. There are people like Willie Savannah in Houston, Emmanuel Stewart in Detroit, that just, you know, take kids off the streets and get them started at a very early age. And that's the most important thing. Larry Hazard with his combat program in Newark is excellent. You know, when they get kids in the gym at a very early age and get them interested, that's the way they become big amateur stars, and then they progress and become big professional stars. I mean, there's no doubt that, in cities throughout the United States, there should be some way to take kids off the streets so that they don't get involved in gangs and all that sort of stuff, and bring them into the gyms and start to teach them boxing at an early age, because certainly it affects what they do in school, it affects their character and their upbringing and everything else, and it gives them confidence. And I think that the work that's being done by, you know, people that do take kids off the street, like the people I mentioned, Hazard, Emmanuel, and especially Willie Savannah in Houston, who's unbelievable. That's the way to get kids interested in boxing and really make the sport grow.
Yeah. My next question was who your opinion of the nicest people were in the sport, and you already started naming a few. Who else comes to mind when you think of nice?
Wow. I think the new president of HBO Sports, Ken Hirschman's a very nice guy. Really is. Certainly some of the promoters are pretty nice. I like Bob Arum. I like Lou DiBella. Love Don King. I think he's the funniest thing going. I never saw anybody could promote as well as he does, you know. So some of the promoters are very nice. A lot of the matchmakers are very nice guys. Bruce Trampler has been a personal friend of mine for a long time. He's the matchmaker at Top Rank. Let's see. A lot of the judges are real nice guys. Like I said, I like Michael Pernick in Florida. I like Joe Pasquale in Trenton, New Jersey. He's a super nice guy. A lot of the ring announcers are really nice guys. I love Michael Buffer, Joe Antonacci in New York, and the new announcer, David Diamante, who now not only works boxing, but he's the announcer for the New Jersey Nets basketball team. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of nice people in boxing.
Yeah, really, it's the sport that you see the most nice people, most accommodating and approachable people.
I think so. I would say boxing is right up there with any of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. Listen, are there any fighters that you wish were on HBO, but you don't get a chance to see them because they're not?
I love Austin Trapp, the junior middleweight champion from New Mexico. I hope we're going to get him on in August. They've been talking about it. He's very good. There's a kid that fights from Kazakhstan, a middleweight who everybody knew from the amateurs, but he's had promotional problems. His name is Gennady Golovkin, Golovkin. Incredible talent, you know, and he knocked out Lucian Boutet in the amateurs. I'd love to see him on HBO. There's a kid that's going to represent England in the Olympics that everybody's talking about. His name is Anthony Joshua. He's an amateur right now, but they say he's the next coming of Lennox Lewis. 6'6", good puncher, good boxer, good skills, and I'm very anxious to see him when he turns pro. Let's see. I'd love to see that the kid that's the junior flyweight champion from Nicaragua. What's his name? Roman Gonzalez. Everybody, their brother talks about him. Incredible fighter, undefeated, and I think he's the WBA champion. And they say he's sensational. I'd love to see him on HBO. But I'd love to see Andre Ward on HBO too, because boy, it's about time. He does nothing but win. Not only does he win every fight, he wins every round.
I was going to ask you about Andre Ward next, actually. What do you think of Bute Frach? What do you think of that fight?
Bute Frach, well, they're fighting in England. My gut feeling is Carl Frach is going to win a decision. I think it'll go to distance. Lucian Bute is beatable. He proved that in the first fight with Liberato Andrade. I mean, truth of the matter is Liberato Andrade knocked him out. Was the victim of some hometown refereeing. And that led me to believe that Bute can be beat. He's an awkward kind of guy. He's got a very strong right uppercut that he throws for southpaw. And, he's doing real well against, relatively mediocre opposition. But Frach is a horse in another color. Frach is tough. He can box. He can punch. The fights in England, I think that it's got the makings of a great trilogy. I really believe that Frach is going to win in England, but it'll be close enough. And I think Bute will get a return in Montreal, and then we'll see.
Who's the top 5 trainers today?
Definitely Manuel Stewart has to be right up there. It's one of the top guys in the game. I love Freddie Roach. I guess everybody does, He's certainly up there among the top guys. There's a guy in Pittsburgh I like very much that Roy Jones is working with right now. His name is Tommy Yankello. He's an excellent trainer. There's a couple of young trainers I like. There's a kid over in Brooklyn named Nirmal Lorick, Lorick, who's very, very good. And he was training Louis Collazo. But Nirmal's a very, very good trainer. You can tell just watching him work with his fighters. He works with a lot of the Spanish fighters. And he's excellent. Let's see, who else do we got that's really good? Levander Johnson's father, Bill Johnson, is a very good trainer in Atlantic City. I like him a lot. Very nice man, very good trainer. It's a shame what happened, but, boxing is a dangerous game. Let's see, who's down in Philadelphia? Because Philadelphia was always known for the great trainers, although a lot of them are dying these days. Joey I guess. His name is not actually Joey I, E-Y-E. That's the boxing name he uses. He's got some Italian name, which I don't know off the top of my head, but he's a good trainer, and now he's promoting small shows there. But he's very good. And that's about my top guys that I can think of off the top of my head. You gotta put in a word for Sam Colonna in Chicago. Very, very good trainer. I guess it's Collona, Colonna. He's excellent.
Yeah.
He's trained Angel Manfredi.
Yeah, a lot of good choices there. You definitely know your trainers. Yeah, name more than 5 too. I only asked you for 5. And you went above and beyond, Harold. What do you think of Roy Jones in his prime and why he keeps going on now? Roy
Jones in his prime was sensational. Loved him. He showed us stuff that nobody else ever showed us, and he was great entertainment. He was great for the game. He was a great fighter. What he did was amazing, going from middleweight and winning the heavyweight championship of the world. Just an amazing guy. Had an amazing career, and why he's still fighting, I don't know. He won't tell me. The rumors are is that he needs money, and I guess truth of the matter is that when fighters step in the ring, and especially when they step in the ring beyond their years, it's money, isn't it? For no other reason. You don't step in the ring when you're Roy Jones Jr. because you need somebody to slap you on the back and say what kind of great fighter you used to be. I mean, Roy doesn't need that. Roy has gotten all his hurrahs, so. He's not fighting for the glory. It's money, and that's obvious. It's sort of sad, but, I guess sometimes you make bad business decisions, and these things happen, and I presume that's why Roy's still fighting, but, I can't think of another reason. But, for sure I don't know, because, Roy never tells anybody.
Yeah. Who's the, give me a top 5 list of all-time best, in your opinion, all-time best fighters.
Well, say Sugar Ray Robinson. I saw him once. I saw him live against Denny Moyer in Madison Square Garden, but that was late in his career. It was like 1962. very late in his career, wasn't the real Sugar Ray Robinson, but I would say he's the best. I never saw Harry Greb, but everybody says he was one of the top guys out there. I did see a lot of Muhammad Ali, and I loved him, and I thought he was one of the best. I love Joe Louis, and certainly got to love Rocky Marciano, and I love that kid from Philadelphia that never won a world title, Benny Briscoe, because Benny was exciting.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what do you think of Charlie Burley? What would he have done against Sugar Ray Robinson?
Great fight that never happened. Charlie really gave everybody a tough fight. I mean, Archie fought him once, I wouldn't fight him again. Charlie was amazing. I mean, he fought everybody from middleweights up to heavyweights, and people didn't want to have any part of him. So you got to put Charlie in your top 10. I mean, I used to listen to Eddie Futch when he was alive. He was a great trainer, and he used to tell me stories about Charlie Burley. He thought Charlie Burley was the greatest that ever lived, and there's no doubt he has to be one of the great fighters of all time.
Yeah. And what's the saddest thing you witnessed in a boxing ring?
Tough question. The saddest thing I've witnessed. Let me think. I don't know. You see some of these old guys that step in the ring, that they don't belong there. What's his name fought just recently, and I thought it was just awful. Joel Casamayor. They put him in against the comebacking Timothy Bradley, and I thought that was very sad. Joel Casamayor, he was a great Olympian. He was a pretty good pro, and but it was sad to watch him get beat up. He had no chance at all to win the fight. And all he was doing was getting the tar beat out of him, and it was sad.
Yep. Were you ever threatened by anybody?
No. Crazy things happen because there's no such thing as a gracious loser. I mean, I had occasions where I had run-ins after fights that I judged with people like Lou Duva, Gil Clancy, and Emmanuel Stewart, but certainly I didn't get threatened.
Let's see. Manny versus Floyd, who wins?
I like Floyd Mayweather. I just think he's got too much skill. He's too tricky. But I don't think he's the greatest fighter that ever lived. I think Robinson is, and I think one of the reasons that he isn't the greatest fighter that ever lived is he never fought New York. And I think that all the great fighters fought New York, and you have to fight New York to call yourself one of the greatest that ever lived.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that fight, what's some of the other fights that were never made that should have been made? We already talked about Robinson and Burley, never made.
Well, there's a whole lot of them. One fight that I would have liked to see is Carlos Monzon was a very, very tall middleweight. I would have loved to see Carlos Monzon fight Bob Foster. I think it would have been a great fight. It never happened. Roberto Duran was, a sensational lightweight. He virtually ignored the junior welterweight division. He moved right up to welterweight to fight Ray Leonard because that's where the most money was. But I would have loved to see Roberto Duran and Antonio Cervantes, also known as Kid Pambalay, a Colombian, who was a fabulous 140-pound fighter, and Duran and Cervantes would have been a sensational fight. And, of course, it never happened because Duran didn't stop at 140. There was just no money for Duran, Cervantes in Colombia or Panama. And so, Duran moved up to 47 to fight Ray and, of course, made a fortune, made a big name for himself. Those were two of the fights that I really would have liked to see. I'm sure there's a lot of others, but just can't think at this point in time.
Yeah. Speaking of Duran, what do you think? Duran versus Chavez at lightweight, who would have won that fight?
Oh, at 135, Duran would have killed him. At 135, no contest. At 135, Roberto Duran was the most vicious guy I ever saw in my life. I mean, a lot of people say that Joe Gans and Benny Leonard were better, but certainly in my time, I think Duran was absolutely the most vicious at 135. He was beyond belief. He was really something sensational, fast, and huge power.
What do you think he would have done with Purnell at 135?
That would have been a tough fight. As Sweet Pea was so tricky. Sweet Pea could win a decision from virtually anybody. I really think Duran would have stopped him, but it would have been a great fight.
Yeah. One more. Chavez, or Duran, at lightweight, or Shane Mosley?
You asking me who would win between who now?
Duran and Mosley.
Duran and Mosley? No contest for Burrow at 135.
Yeah.
Duran was incredible at 135.
Yeah. I got a few more questions, Harold. I don't know if you want to hang up now or what. I know.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. what's some of the fights that you thought might give you a heart attack watching it? They were so exciting. The Pintor fight, I guess.
Yeah, Pintor Gomez was absolutely unreal. You know, and you know, you got to put Gaddy Ward right up there. Let's see. I love the fights. Interestingly enough, the two fights between Brian Minto and Vinny Mataloni. Absolutely sensational fights that a lot of people have forgotten.
Yeah.
And both of them were great.
Do you remember the Murky Sosa Prince Charles Williams fights?
Yep, two of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely sensational fights. Murky Sosa was a tough guy.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny, he finally got a shot at Roy Jones, and they stopped it in that third round, and it was a fight that should have never been stopped. It was a really bad stoppage, because he would have battled Roy down to the wire in that fight. They never gave him a chance, and it was a shame. It was in New York. The referee, I think, was the late Wayne Kelly, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. I wouldn't say that. I don't remember who the referee was. But Beers and they stopped it in the third round, and that fight should have gone on longer because Murky was so tough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the Prince Charles Williams fights will be beyond belief.
Yeah. Does your wife like boxing?
Eileen, absolutely. She goes to a lot of fights with me.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I said Eileen loves boxing.
That's good. What do you think of the Klitschko's?
Very, very good athletes. It's a shame that they don't have some more competition out there. You know, they're always in shape. They come to fight. They're big guys. And I think Vladimir is beatable because I don't think he's got a great jaw. I think he fights scared. But there's nobody out there to give him a contest. I think that Vladimir and Tony Thompson is going to turn out to be a very, very good fight. Mm-hmm. I think Tony Thompson is ready, and he's mean, he's hungry, and he's a southpaw, and he can punch, and he's a big guy, and I think that Thompson and Klitschko is going to be a very good fight. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to it.
So you think Vitaly beats Vladimir, huh?
Oh yeah, I think Vitaly's the better fighter.
Yeah, me too. What do you think they would have done against other great heavyweights? Think they could have been in there with them?
I think they would have held their own. Yeah, the big guys are always in shape. They're athletic. They know how to fight. And, I mean, look, we saw it when Italy battled Lennox Lewis down to the wire. So, we saw that they could hold their own with great fighters. Lennox was a great fighter. He really was in, a little bit past his prime when he fought Italy, but still he was still a great fighter at the time. And Italy gave him a great fight. So that proved right there that the Klitschko's could hold their own against good fighters.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think of Showtime trying to get their own house judge? Isn't that clear copycat?
Yeah, I hate to even comment on it. It's not fair. Mm-hmm. Chuck Champ is my friend, and, they do what they feel is right to do.
Mm-hmm. And what's the most beautiful places for boxing that you've been to? The one place that you wish you could go to for all the shows? Is it Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I would say Madison Square Garden, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think they could do to make boxing safer now? Is there anything that you think they should try to do?
Well, they're certainly working on when a guy should retire. In other words, there's a study going on in Las Vegas right now about when a guy's taken enough punches to the head so that, in the future he might become punch drunk or have, neurological problems or Parkinson's or whatever. So they're working very hard on that study to be able to determine at what point the fighter should get out of the game. And I think that's very, very important, and I hope boxing continues to support that study. There's a name for it. It's the Lose Something or Other study, and it's going on in Vegas right now in one of the hospitals. And I think that study is one of the most important safety features to come along in a long time.
Mm-hmm. And what do you expect to happen in the Floyd Mayweather-Miguel Cotto fight?
Well, I hate to comment on a fight where I have to keep score. Yeah. So, I'll pass on that one.
Yeah.
Floyd's a great fighter, and certainly he's looking for for bigger names. And, you're talking about him and Sergio Martinez and him and Pacquiao. So, we'll see. But in the meantime, Miguel's about as tough as he can get, and Miguel's Miguel's always capable of knocking out anybody. So you never know.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of Kelly Pavlik coming back? You think he has a good chance to resurrect his career?
I would love to see him get his act together. To me, it would be so great. I mean, I'd love, if he could get away from alcohol and get a couple of tune-up fights and keep on working with Robert Garcia. I think Kelly Pavlik's a great athlete. He's got a good long left jab and a sensational right hand, and he's given us a lot of great fights, and I really look forward to seeing him again.
Yeah. What do you think is next for Sergio Martinez?
Well, I'd love to see a unification with Chavez, and I'd love to see Sergio and Golovkin. But then again, I'd also love to see Sergio Martinez and Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd's fighting for a 154-pound title, and Sergio's a small middleweight. He only weighed 157 in his last defense. So, I'd like to see that also.
Mm-hmm. And what's your memories of Angelo Dundee?
Loved him. Great ambassador for boxing. Tremendous guy. Would stop and talk to anybody. Would give anybody an autograph. Take a picture with you. Had a lot of great stories. He was fun to be around. He was a great trainer, and the world will really miss him.
And how about Joe Frazier? What's your memories of him?
I like Smokey Joe very much. I didn't know him personally. I knew him as a fighter. I saw so many of his fights. And, a guy with a great left hook, and he always came to fight. And another great ambassador, for boxing. And, nobody will forget the 3 fights he had with Muhammad Ali, just 3 sensational battles, and, everybody that knew him loved him, so we'll miss him.
Yeah. And Bert Sugar just passed away.
Oh, my God. That's a personal loss. Bert did so much work for HBO, so I spent so much time with him. I go back, a lot longer than that. I first started with Bert when he was the editor of Boxing Illustrated magazine, and he worked with my friend Lou Eskin. It's ESKIN, and Bert and Lou used to work together on the magazines, and so I knew Bert way back when, and he was funny as all get out in those days, a real boxing character. And his last book, the book of boxing lists, he asked me to write a chapter about the worst decisions I ever saw, and I did write a chapter for the book. And, so I considered Bert a close personal friend. I'll miss his friendship. I'll miss all his great stories. I'll miss hanging around with him.
Yeah, it was always a treat to catch him on TV.
That's for sure.
We will miss him.
Yep.
And do you go to Canastota every June?
No. A lot of times there's a conflict with HBO fights, and it's an expensive weekend. They charge you for everything in Canastota. They charge you for the cocktail party, they charge you for the dinner, so winds up costing you a lot of money. I don't go every year, but 5 or 6, I would say, and I try to go, but I like being around fight people, but unfortunately, we've been running fights on a lot of the same weekends that they have, and June's always a busy month for me. This year, I'd like to go to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in Tampa, for example, so, I'm not so sure I'm going to be around the weekend of the Canastota, but if I am, certainly I'll go up there.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got for you, Mr. Lederman. Thank you.
I got to run. It's good talking to you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.